welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who is currently chomping on some certs. It's Tom Tresor.
And then I've got my nose spray.
So today you and I are pitting Drop Zone and Terminal Velocity, two 1994 skydiving films against each other. And in Terminal Velocity, there's a scene with James Gandolfini and Charlie Sheen where they are just standing together waiting for Natasha Kinski's character, Krista, to show up. And in this scene, it's just 30 seconds of them chomping on certs. And it might be one of my favorite cinematic moments ever. I mean, this is the rosebud of moments. We're just two guys standing around together eating certs. And what sells it is when James Gandolfini goes, "Don't take them all." So James Gandolfini loves to chomp on certs. He offers some to Charlie Sheen. Then he gets mad when Charlie takes too many.
It's such a weird, tick that James Gandolfini's character has developed, to try to curb his fake nervousness, as you could call it. So he's got the certs, he's got the eye drops, and he's got the nose spray. It's like he's doing everything he can to milk everything with this character for what little is given to him in this script.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so I don't know, back in the day when Steve McQueen had small roles, like in The Magnificent Seven, he'd be in the background tinkering with his guns and hat the entire time to try to get attention on him. And in this one, Gandolfini is just all quirks. He is just the big glasses, the mousy demeanor. I love it. But then
the huge trench overcoat.
Then you flip it around, and Christopher McDonald in Terminal Velocity just screams the entire time, and he
screams and he hits things,
and he promotes Lincoln. But I just love how angry he is in the movie. And I know we're jumping all over the place, but I don't care. There's a scene where at the end of Terminal Velocity, he and Charlie Sheen are falling out of an airplane in a car, and Christopher McDonald, he goes to Charlie Sheen, give me your parachute.
Give me your parachute.
No.
As they're falling from 20,000 feet.
So this is such a...
It's really interesting when you're comparing those two villains from Terminal Velocity, the nervous ticks and quirks from Gandolfini to the overtop, theatrics of McDonald. He gets so angry when his gun runs out of bullets that he hits his gun. He spends most of the time, having a tantrum after something doesn't go his way. And he's so angry when Charlie Sheen backs his car out of an airplane that he jumps onto the hood to try to get his car back because he has such a weird infatuation with that car.
And he has a weird, magnet belly that keeps him attached to the hood when they're falling.
It is crazy. Well, until Charlie Sheen punches him so hard that he separates the magnet.
All right, so this was your idea. So for a long time, you and I have talked about doing these two movies on a podcast, but you came across a website where they did a competition between two movies, and then you kind of pitched this to me. So where did this come from? The categories? You want to break down the categories we have and what our plan is for this podcast or this episode?
So I saw this. We'd always been talking about doing these two movies, and we've always had these little side conversations about similar films that have come out pretty much at the same exact time. That stuff has been going on for years, where a script gets pitched, and then someone else has another idea that's similar to it. And then two separate production companies start rolling with the idea. And then, here in 1994, we got two random skydiving movies that came out just a few months apart. I mean, it's a really weird genre for studios to go all in on for big action movies. And so I always wanted to get a podcast where we talk about them, but we didn't know how to do it. And as you said, we came across this website that kind of faced different movies off. And I think the movie that I saw on this website that they did was Gladiator and Braveheart. And so then they kind of did their own scoring system. But with us being a little off center with a lot of our discussions and how crazy we get, we wanted to come up with better and funner categories to talk about. So here I think we've picked 11 categories, was it?
Yep.
11 categories that will break a tie if there is one. So it's we've got best jump, coolest parachute design, who would win in a daring jump-off competition, who has the better sidekicks, the coolest title, the best character names, best one-liners, what movie is the most 90s out of the two, since they were both released in 94, best villain, best credit song / musical instrumental score, and then the tiebreaker was best overall moment.
Yep. So, since we already talked about the villains in Terminal Velocity, do you want to talk about the villains in Drop Zone, and then we'll pick our winner in that category?
Yeah, man, it's really tough. Like you've got. So I was kind of thinking about this last night. I feel like James Gandolfini is a really stellar actor, like one of the better actors of the generation. And McDonald's really good too in Terminal Velocity. I wouldn't call him one of the best actors around. But then you've got Drop Zone with the psychotic, crazy Gary Busey who brings it in every single movie.
Oh man!
And then I feel like they've got his whole crew is just solid. Mm-hmm. So it's weird for me. Like I feel like it's almost like a batting average where it's like if Gandolfini was like the best player on their evil bad guys baseball team, he'd be batting like 350, and everyone else is averaging like 250.
Yeah.
And then with Drop Zone, you've got Gary Busey, who might be a 300 hitter, but then everyone else is in like the 280s. Like I feel like the average score for the Drop Zone villains is higher, and it kind of brings them above the Terminal Velocity guys.
Oh, see, the way I kind of see it is you have Ty Moncrief, played by Gary Busey, former DEA. I like Gary Busey's never bad, but his associates like Kara and Deuce, they're just so murderous. Like they're just walking around slaughtering cops and joking about throwing children out of planes. And they're just sort of, for me, they kind of felt a little bit caricature-y, like classic 90s too cool for school villains. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that.
And then you have James Gandolfini chewing certs and Christopher McDonald just screaming. Like they're not even really villains. Like they're just, it's the weirdest plot, Tom. It's so weird. But I guess if we're going to say villains.
For which movie? They're both weird plots.
Yeah, so
they're both crazy plots.
So are we gonna? All right, the plot in Drop Zone is strangely coherent. So they kidnap a hacker, then they're gonna jump on DC during the one time a year they're allowed to score a massive haul, and then they parachute away into a dump truck. Oh man! All right, you know what, Tom? I'm saying Terminal Velocity. What are you saying?
I think Drop Zone, Gary Busey does it for me. I love me some Gary Busey.
I mean, are they better villains? Yeah. There's like scenes where the villains are just sitting around mugging, acting too cool for school, and they're just straight up murderers. That I just kind of said, you know what? I like how Christopher McDonald always fails. I like how Charlie Sheen spears both Gandolfini and Christopher McDonald. I like that during the final kiss in Terminal Velocity, James Gandolfini lands his parachute on top of him. It's insane. So, all right, so our votes are split on that one, right? Drop Zone and Terminal Velocity, 1-1?
Yes, they are.
All right, next, we're going to do Best Jump. So which movie has the best jump? Now, I sent you a link last night that's 3 pages long, and it breaks down all of the stunts in Drop Zone. I was just awed at what went into the Drop Zone stunts. I mean, they were flying every day, like tandem dropping people out. There's one stuntman who was a stuntman for Yancey Butler, and then let's see.
He was the same. He was the same stunt dude for Butler, Snipes, and
Jeter.
Not Derek Jeter.
Michael Jeter. Yeah, but they were like, and then they showed the cameramen who had full cameras on their heads. I mean, that's insane. So what do you think is the best?
I think our
jump?
listeners need to think about too. Like these are like the mid '90s cameras with the giant reels and boxes on them that they're like super gluing to their helmets, and these guys are jumping out of airplanes with them. These
40 times the weight.
The days of GoPros.
Yeah.
Yes, it's absurd.
So they're just. I think Terminal Velocity probably got some great footage, but Drop Zone, some of these scenes, I mean. Like, they talked about how the guy flew in the water. There's a scene where one of the characters flies into the water. And a real stuntman did that. And he's like, and they said he was lucky he didn't get a water enema flying down there, which is kind of funny. But it's, what do you think is the best jump in these two films?
You know, I've got so much love for Drop Zone that I think it's going to take the cake in some of these other categories. So I went against the grain here, and I actually picked terminal velocity for the best jump. And this is when Brody backs the Cadillac, Ditch Brody backs the Cadillac out of the plane with Chris Morrow locked in the trunk.
Yeah.
And I just think that scene is so well put together, and they could have gone so many other directions with that scene. Like, he drives the thing forward, he crunches McDonald's legs. So it's like, then why is he back up and drive it back out of the airplane? At that point, you could just keep the guy pinned, let him run out of ammo. Then you just go around and grab her, get her out of the trunk, and then you jump out of the airplane. Instead, he actually backs the entire thing out, and it's a really good scene for like a mid-90s action movie. Like, you buy it. The visuals look really good.
Oh yeah.
It's almost. I saw another review, so I'm kind of stealing this, but it's kind of Fast and the Furious, 15 years before Fast and the Furious started chucking vehicles out of airplanes.
So, and also it's kind of the same plot, right? All right, so you remember Point Break? He gets in with surfers with Gary Busey, and then this guy, he doesn't get in with criminals, but he gets in with a ragtag group to stop criminals. Wow. Mm-hmm. Oh man. So you're saying terminal velocity?
I'm going terminal velocity with the best overall jump. I don't think it's got the best overall, but Drop Zone has by far more quality jumps.
I mean, there's a scene where it's the big group together, and each of the groups gets 10 points, and there's a guy doing a corkscrew in the air, perfectly controlled. It's an awesome
I remember
scene.
that. That's cool. But and he disappears into the clouds.
I'm going terminal velocity because of the car gag. Oh wow! So terminal velocity has a 3-1 lead right now. What do you? It's great. It's great. So I get, you know what,
Wait,
Tom?
so it's got.
What's up?
For you it does for best villains.
Yeah. So you're that's 3-1, but Drop Zone has plenty of chances to catch up. I guess we should break down the plot, right, of each real quick, in case you haven't watched this. So Drop Zone is about a guy named Pete Nessup, which is Snipes, anagram. But then he's flying a guy, and something happens on a plane, and his partner is killed. And everyone thinks that it's his partner's fault because all these people died. Basically, Gary Busey and his crew rescue a guy on a 747 from 38,000 feet in the air.
Yeah, prison break from a 747.
And then Snipes just goes after him, but he teams up with some other skydivers who will help him get into a DC jump so he can stop Gary Busey. And then Terminal Velocity is about a guy who calls himself a flying penis, Richard Ditch Brody. And he is he takes this woman on a skydiving thing. She falls to her death. He doesn't believe it, so it's a mystery. It turns out she's alive. He teams up with her, and she's the badass. He's Jack Burton of the group. He's kind of the wily guy who just wants to take naps. And together they foil some Russians who want to throw a coup in Russia, which could kill thousands. And Charlie Sheen is a gymnast who finally gets his gold. Russian gold. Is that good?
Russian gold. Love it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, next. This is bad. So let's see. Better sidekicks. Who has the better sidekicks? Now,
you go for it.
This has to be Drop Zone. Just simply because in this one, I guess Charlie Sheen's the sidekick to Natasha Kinski. Because once everything gets going, she's the boss. There's really no sidekicks in terms of, she's not a sidekick, Krista. She's a badass.
Correct. You've got. You could, I guess, consider some sidekicks early on that they could have continued to kick with them on the side. Mm-hmm. Like, you've got the girl with the double broken legs, and then his Ditch Brody's, I guess, airfield boss, and then the young kid that's the camera recorder that assumedly records Chris Morrow falling to her death. So it's like they've introduced these little side characters, and then they end up kicking them to the curb. 40 minutes in, once the bullets start flying, and it all becomes Charlie Sheen and KGB agents.
I love it. It's so crazy.
But I mean, you're right. And then Drop Zone actually has a full gamut of